Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Bigfoot. A few weeks ago, I published a video talking about why I'm done hiking with carbon fiber trekking poles. Then as a follow-up, I talked about the impacts that temperatures could have on carbon fiber trekking poles and what the real science is behind it. Now, when I published that video, I had an issue with it staying public. After a few hours, it went from public to private without me changing it. I thought my account was hijacked. I made it public again, and it continued to go back to private. So I got YouTube involved in it. And after some back and forth, YouTube recognized that it was actually an internal issue and it was their fault. So because of that though, a lot of folks didn't have the opportunity to really see that video or really know that it was published on my channel. So what I've done is I'm actually re-uploading the video. This is the same video that I published before. So if you already saw it, then you can go ahead and go on to the next video that you want to watch on YouTube. But I wanted to make sure that you folks knew that it was out there because there was some important information to a statement that I made in my original trekking pole video about why I'm done hiking with carbon fiber trekking poles. So having said that, let's go ahead and get into the video. Last Tuesday, I published a video about why I am done hiking with carbon fiber trekking poles. In that video, I talked about a few things related to carbon, and there was one thing that I was a little inaccurate with. I want to be able to set the record straight right now and give you the science and the facts about it. Welcome back, hikers. I'm Bigfoot. The purpose of this video is to be able to educate and inform you about something that I misspoke on, during my last video last Tuesday. Now, if you guys watch this video, I talked about why I am done hiking with carbon fiber trekking poles. I'm not a big fan of carbon fiber because I've had a lot of poles snap and break on me. Now, in this video, I talked about my recent experience with Knockout Doors Vertex carbon and cork trekking pole. I mentioned that I had an issue with it actually breaking on me when I was hiking the spear hiking trail in the middle of winter. I also made a statement that I said that carbon gets brittle the colder that it gets. First off, where did I get this information about carbon being brittle? When I had my experience out on the spear hiking trail of my pole snapping, which it looks like this now, I contacted the company Knockout Doors and spoke with the owner. I told them that this snapped during my second day of use and I was hiking in the middle of winter on the SHT. He told me with his product, the colder that you're hiking in, the temperatures, the more brittle the carbon is going to be. Now, I mentioned this in the video and I got an email from a subscriber. Hey Bigfoot, I saw that you recently posted a video called Why I'm Done Using Carbon Fiber Trekking Poles. I gave it a watch and noticed that you made the statement that carbon fiber becomes brittle when in cold temps. I was just wondering where you got this information from on that. I worked in the bike industry for 2 years and worked with carbon fiber bike frames components. It is well known in the industry about the neutral state of carbon fiber, which is why it is used in place of other materials in certain conditions. One of the reasons aircraft engineers and even companies like NASA use carbon fiber components on launch, re-entry vehicles, and satellites is because of carbon's super low CTE, coefficient of thermal expansion, essentially meaning that carbon is sort of a neutral material when it comes to extreme temperature changes. NASA uses it because satellites and rockets make extreme temperature changes from superheated to near absolute zero. So basically, all of that mumbo jumbo states that carbon fiber should not become more brittle or change its molecular structure when going from one temperature to another, hence why they use it for space travel. Because of my background of working with carbon fiber components and understanding the science behind it, I was just curious as to where you got your brittle information about carbon. My first thought after reading this was that I am very uneducated with carbon fiber. I don't know the science behind it. I just simply took the information that was given to me from the owner and passed it along. But I wanted to do a follow-up to figure out exactly what the truth behind this was. So we reached out to Gilad, and this is the statement that he gave us. Thanks for getting in touch. You set me on a spiral of self-doubt here, so let me start by saying that I am not an engineer, so my insight may be different. From what I know, one of the most common knowledge in the industry, the epoxy that makes the carbon shafts can and tends to become brittle at low temperatures, not the carbon itself. I've seen that happen and heard that from Black Diamond reps in Europe that at very low temperatures, carbon fiber is not recommended, but if you know more, I'd be happy to learn. Some of my knowledge is also based on empirical evidence. Every time that I get a customer that breaks a pole that wasn't specifically struck between rocks, etc., was in deep snow and very low temperatures, always. The issue with low temps is constantly told to me by the factory in China, so the whole thing could be just the result of cheaper carbon from China. I don't know that, as I am prototyping the next version of the poles with USSPC. We have had no issues in low temps. Last, carbon shafts are rolled with bike frames. The construction is very different, adding the carbon layers one at a time, so that could be part of the effect. And the big price difference between a carbon fiber frame and carbon fiber poles. Now, Gilad actually did a little bit of research and he sent us another email last night. Hello Rory, as I mentioned, you sent me on a spiral of self-doubt, so I went back to my Chinese factory and they insist that carbon fiber has issues in cold weather. I also checked with my US factory for the next gen poles and they say there is no problem in cold weather. I couldn't get a hold of any of the people I knew in the UK. I'm now competition, so the only thing I can deduce is that Chinese are trying to cover their beep for using cheaper materials, a big part of why I'm moving production to the US. So, to some level I wasn't wrong, as the issue is the cheaper epoxy, but that can't be the extent to all the carbon fiber products. Do note that Black Diamond had the same issues with their carbon fiber poles at the beginning in cold weather, so it might be the evolution of control and paying more for materials. In any case, I'm phasing the Chinese stuff out and hope to get the next Gen 2 of the poles off the ground by the summer. Maybe I should get both of you guys a pair to see if you can break some high-end carbon fiber. Sincerely, Gilad. So it appears that the statement that I made about carbon fiber being brittle in colder temperatures is not really accurate. Well, not generally speaking. However, the carbon shafts that is made by Knockout Doors, because this is produced in China, and the epoxy that they use on these things is more brittle in lower temperatures. For my own understanding, I decided to go out and contact Gilad myself just to make sure that I really understood exactly everything that was going on. Gilad produces their Knockout Door trekking poles, the carbon trekking poles, out in China. The way that they produce these poles is with layers of carbon, and in between the layers of carbon is epoxy. The epoxy that they have, that they use out in China, is more brittle when it is in colder temperatures, which is the reason why I and many other folks have had issues with the carbon and cork trekking poles breaking, especially in colder temperatures. So because of all these issues, Gilad has made the decision of moving his production from China over to the US. He's actually working on a Gen 2 pole right now. He will, like he said in his email, have it out sometime in the middle of summer, and he's phasing out the current Vertex carbon and cork trekking poles. Now, what Gilad said with carbon fiber bike frames, they use smaller sheets of carbon fiber, and they basically, kind of like if you're paper macheing, you're putting small pieces and then you're putting an epoxy on there, small pieces, opposed to carbon fiber poles where they're actually using sheets. But with these, it's all in the epoxy that they use. But with bike frames, they're just using a lot more smaller sheets of carbon, which is making that frame a lot more stronger, a lot more durable, but of course increases the cost a lot. So in short, carbon fiber itself is not brittle in colder temperatures. It's the epoxy that is being made to bond that carbon fiber, depending on which epoxy is being used by the manufacturer. If the poles are being produced in China, it's likely they're using an inferior epoxy compared to poles made out of the US. I just wanted to set the record straight because it's very important to me that I am giving all of you the most accurate information, the facts behind things. But if I ever do make mistakes or I misstate, as I did with carbon fiber, I will always make sure that I own up to it and try to get that information back out to you. Now, if you learned anything in this video or you found it helpful, give me a thumbs up. Stay tuned for many more sightings, and remember to always follow Bigfoot. We'll see you next time.